that nothing happens to them. But at the same time, I wonder what compels them to stay in a country that obviously hates them. It doesn't make sense to me why Jews would be there. Now, somebody's going to tell me, Howie, what are you talking about? Ukraine's a democracy, and this country, Russia, this dictatorship, Russia, and Vladimir Putin, the evil Vladimir Putin, is coming to take away the democratic status of the Ukraine, and we must stand up for democracy right around the world. I say, hogwash. It's not true. Let's cut through some of the baloney, some of the propaganda, driven by the media. Vladimir Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, is not a democratic leader. Before the war broke out, he banned opposition parties from his parliament. He arrested the opposition leaders and shut down newspapers that opposed him. Zelensky's religion, and everyone points out to me, he's Jewish. Zelensky's religion is absolutely and 100% irrelevant in the context of the conversation about the war in the Ukraine. I couldn't care less what his religion is. Totally inconsequential. Russian aggression and imperialism is nothing new in Eastern Europe. Ukraine was part of the USSR, and since its dissolution in the late 1990s, Russia and the Ukraine have been on friendly and unfriendly terms. It goes back and forth between Russia and the Ukraine. So sometimes Russia likes the Ukraine, sometimes they're friends, and sometimes it's like this, and they're not friends. It's not a surprise. It's not a big deal. It's not as big deal as the world's making it. Look, attacking an independent country is a horrible thing, but nobody really made a huge deal about Russia, I don't know, attacking and annexing the Crimea from the Ukraine in 2014. Nor did anybody really care that Russia attacked Georgia in 2009, or also in 2009 when Russia closed down the gas line to the Ukraine, starving the Ukraine of essential gasoline, or the ongoing war in Russia in the Donbass with Russia. No one cared when Russia conquered and annexed Chechnya for a while in the late 1990s. Nobody really cared. Okay, let's be honest. The media controls what you care about. Propaganda plays on your emotion and allows you to care about one conflict and ignore another one. Suffering is suffering. And if you don't care about everyone's suffering, but are hyper-focused on one conflict, you are really being manipulated by the media. But let's put all that aside. I've seen post after post after post of people showing a woman and a bunch of children huddled in a bomb shelter in central Ukraine. And post after post of people saying, "Oh, my heart is broken by this picture. Look at this woman and her children. They're huddled in a bomb shelter. How terrible." Where were those people for the last 20 years? Well, almost 20 years. While bombs were falling on the heads of Israelis. Where are those people when bombs landed in kindergartens in towns like Sderot? Where were the people who cared then? Where was the heartbreak? Where was the heartbreak then? Why is it that when bombs fall on the heads of Jews and Israelis, nobody cares? When the bombs fall on the heads of Ukrainians, then people start taking notice and the whole world goes crazy. I don't get it. The Cold War has been over for a long time. It makes zero sense to me that we are still behaving as if we're in a Cold War and as if Russia is the biggest foe in the world. We have to understand that Russia is not the greatest enemy of the world today. Russia doesn't have the strength to be the greatest enemy of the world. The greatest enemy of the world today is actually China, which everyone's kind of ignoring. When China decides to rear its head and attack and take over, well, they're slowly economically taking over the world. But once they really take over, then we're all going to look back and say, wait a second, we were focused in the wrong direction. This kind of reminds me of life after 9/11, when all the intelligence services right across the world turned their heads and stopped looking at internal threats like white supremacists and internal terrorists, and only focused on the Muslim threat. Now, while it is correct that Muslims attacked the U.S. at 9/11, and it is correct that radical Islam plays a very, very, very dangerous role in world politics, the truth of the matter is that that they weren't the only terrorists around. And by ignoring the other terrorists and ignoring everything else that was going on and focusing all your resources on the Muslim threat, you did a disservice to your country and allowed the white supremacists and everyone else to reorganize, to recruit, and to build up their armies, their minions, with absolutely zero pushback. And that's a terrible thing to do, and it's terrible that America did that. It's terrible that this was done. So this hyper focus on Ukraine, what is it doing? In America, it's hiding the incompetence of the Biden administration. That's what it's doing. Everyone's forgotten about Biden's disastrous uh, escape from, well, withdrawal of his troops from Afghanistan. Nobody's talking about that anymore. Everybody's nobody's paying attention to the fact that the economy has collapsed in the United States. That oil is at $6 and $7. Well, if you want to go buy gasoline, it's at $6 or $7 a gallon. No, nobody's paying attention to that. The media is a propaganda machine, and normally the media is a propaganda machine for the government. And the media does a great job at distracting people from things they don't want them to see. They shine a shiny object to the right hand side, and you don't see what's happening on the left. It's sleight of hand. It's an old magician's trick. The media does it very, very well. And time and time again, the population buys into it. And those of us that see things in a different way, those of us that look and analyze and are critical thinkers, we're looked at as the nutcases. We're told that we are the ones who are on the fringe of society. It's really sad that the thinking people are on the fringe of society. That people who can analyze the situation, people can look and understands that a situation is not exactly the way it's being presented by the media, are considered fringe and considered nutcases, nutballs. That's how we're labeled. It's extremely sad. But it's a result of a concerted effort by the mainstream, a concerted effort by governments and everyone else to limit education, to dumb down the education system, to not teach history properly. Because if you taught history properly, you'd understand that Ukraine and Russia have been fighting for centuries. This is not a new fight. This is not something that came out of the blue. This has been built up for time and time again. They keep fighting. It happens over and over again. Russia conquers Ukraine. Ukraine declares their independence. Ukraine takes over Crimea. Russia goes after Crimea. Crimea goes independent. Crimea gets taken over by the Ukraine. Crimea takes over by Russia. Russia and Ukraine fight over the Crimea. It's just constant and over centuries, tons and tons of times this has happened. The same exact transactions have happened time and time again. Yet we tend to ignore history and we take a look at what's happening today. So if we want to look at what's happening today, I say that this war was the result of President Biden. I believe that he created this war. I will explain that after the break because I don't think this war would have happened without President Biden. President Biden was the catalyst for this war. President Biden encouraged this war. I would say he even forced this war. Let's talk about that when we come up. I'm Howie Silberger. This is Political Hitman. You could call in 0265 in Israel. In America, 305-768-4841. This is Political Hitman on Israel News Talk Radio. Silberger. This is Political Hitman here on Israel News Talk Radio. You could join me in the chat room on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Just click on that button on the top of the page that says chat room, and you could be in the chat room. You could also call in. It is a talk show, so feel free to call in. Numbers to call in Israel, 02-650-0151. In America, 305-768-4841. So, this war in Ukraine, I don't think it would have happened without the intervention of President Joe Biden. Let me tell you what. Let me tell you the way I saw this happening. Now, and I've been following this story for a while. I've been following the story since the airplane was shot down over to Ukraine a couple of years ago. But let's get to what happened now. 2 weeks ago, or maybe 2.5 weeks ago now, maybe even 3 weeks ago, Joe Biden got up at a press conference and said, "We have credible information that Russia is going to attack Ukraine." He said it clearly at a press conference. I watched the press conference live. I heard him say it. The same day, Vladimir Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, went out and said, "We have no information about Russia attacking us. We have no idea what the president of the United States is talking about." President Putin of Russia said the exact same thing. "We have no intention of attacking Ukraine. We have no idea what the president is talking about." Now, if you believe politicians, which I generally don't, but in this case they both seemed a little flustered and a little confused as to what Biden was talking about. Not an unusual situation when Biden gets up to speak. The two presidents claimed that it wasn't that they had no idea what this whole attack was about. But Biden got up 3 more times over the next couple of weeks and said Russia's going to attack Ukraine, and the Ukrainian president even made a joke out of it and says, "Yes, we are going to be attacked on February 8th." And then after the attack, he got up and he says, "Oh, look, Russia didn't attack us." I mean, they were mocking Biden, openly mocking Biden. And then I think probably what happened was President Putin of Russia, finally said, "Hey, look, if the United States really wants us to attack Ukraine, let's attack Ukraine." So he started moving his troops in there, and they went on the attack. I know it's a little bit of a conspiracy theory. I understand that it may be based in reality, but it's not really plausible. It's not plausible that really happened, or is it? Is it plausible that that's really what happened? That the president of the United States, knowing that his approval ratings had dropped almost nothing, knowing that his economy was collapsing, knowing that he had to do something a little rash in order to get attention, to look like a hero, knowing that his State of the Union address was coming up in a week or two, knowing all that, decided to start a war in Eastern Europe? Is that possible? It sounds like the plot of a movie, doesn't it? The movie was called Wag the Dog. In this movie, Wag the Dog, the president gets caught in a very unhealthy situation, and his approval ratings have dropped to the basement, and he's coming up to an election. So he creates a war with Albania in order to become a war president, and thus bring up his popularity and win the election. Canadian Bacon was another example of a fake war. A small town sheriff decides to attack Canada. It borders on ridiculous, but then again, most of the time when you think about politics and the causes of some of the biggest conflicts in politics, ridiculousness is the way it goes. So this war very well may have happened because President Biden suggested that Russia attack Ukraine. Now, Russia and Ukraine have had this kind of, I attack you, you declare independence, and I attack you again relationship for years. Maybe, just maybe, they said, all right, look, whatever. And Russia said, sounds like a great idea. We could use more land. We could try to rebuild the great communist republic, the great USSR. And off they went. Now, I'm getting a little bit of feedback of people who are upset that I said I don't care if people die in the Ukraine. Let me be extremely clear when I about what I said. I don't care if people die in the Ukraine. There I am. That's as clear as I could get. I don't care. Nazism took hold in the Ukraine almost immediately after Nazis attacked Ukraine and conquered the land. The Ukrainian people grabbed onto the concept of Nazism, they embraced it, and they ran with it. They treated the Jews in the Ukraine like vermin. I mean, just take a look at the massacre at Babi Yar. Take a look at some of the other Ukrainian massacres, and you will understand that the Jews living in the Ukraine did not have it good. And it wasn't because of the Germans, it was because of the Ukrainians. Now, on top of that, after the war, many of the Jewish businesses and land that was owned by the Jews that were murdered by the Ukrainians were taken over by Ukrainians who still hold that land, those businesses, and all that today, and never once compensated Jews for the torturous treatment that they received in the Ukraine. So no reparations were ever paid. Nothing was ever done from the Ukraine for the Jewish people. Now, aside from that, now even going even further than that, we have to understand, and people don't seem to understand this concept, and they always get mad at me when I say stuff like this. They always get oh, you're such an evil person, you're a cold-hearted person. You got to understand that when a murderous philosophy like Nazism, is adopted by a country so wholeheartedly, it doesn't disappear when Nazism disappears. It doesn't go away. What happens is it gets passed on from generation to generation. And generation to generation pass it on. And so if you think that Ukraine is less of a Jew-hating country than it was during World War II, you're sadly mistaken. Ukraine has the highest percentage of white supremacists in the world. In fact, the last election where everyone tells me that a Jewish president was elected, the opposition party that was elected in the Ukraine was a Nazi party. It was a Nazi party. So if you tell me that Nazism has disappeared from the Ukraine, that Ukrainians don't believe in Nazism, they elected a Nazi supporting party, a party of white supremacists. White supremacists who speak poorly about Jewish people. So I don't know why Jews would choose to stay in Ukraine. Same reason Jews choose to go to Germany, and same reason Jews choose to go to all different countries that are big Jewish graveyards. I don't know what the logic behind it is. Some people tell me, oh, it's because we want to reclaim the land. Reclaim the why? Why? Why would you want to reclaim the land? We were murdered there. We escaped there. We survived. We left. Why would you want to go back? It doesn't even make sense to me. But there are some people who say we have to go back, so they go back. So people living in Ukraine, Jews living in Ukraine, I think that we should have those Jews. We should do to those Jews exactly what we did to the Jews in Yemen, exactly what we did with the Jews in Morocco, exactly what we did to Jews everywhere. We should go and save them. We should save them from the Jew haters that are in the Ukraine, and we should save them from themselves. So Israel should try to arrange or try to figure out how to get these Jews out of there. We've gotten Jews out of war zones before, and I think it's time to evacuate the Jews from Ukraine and try to encourage them not to stay there. Now, we know there are tons of Jews that left the Ukraine and have already gone to Israel, and I'm hoping that more choose to do this because Israel is the better option. Live in a country that elects a political party that could one day take over the leadership, that hates Jews, that wants to kill Jews, or live in a country run by Jews. I don't know. If you ask me, the toss-up is pretty clear. But once again, I could be talking to myself. I could just be talking for the sake of talking. I don't believe for 1 second that we should make a hero out of Vladimir Zelensky. I don't believe that for 1 second. People tell you he's Jewish. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me what his religion is. The man is a fascist. He arrested the opposition leader before this war. He arrested his opposition leader, the opposing party leader. He shut down the he shut down the opposing newspapers. He did not allow dissent in his country. Countries that don't allow people to argue with them, people to criticize the government, people to stand up against the government, those countries we call fascist. Those are fascist governments. And fascist governments are not governments that we should be supporting in the West, where we believe in democracy and we believe that democracy should prevail. So if you want a Western democracy, you cannot be supporting fascist governments. Now, you want to call Putin a fascist? I will agree with you 100%. Putin is a fascist. He's an old-time Soviet USSRnik. And that's fascist enough for me. But Zelensky doesn't fall far behind Putin. And if you want to support a fascist, that's fine. Support fascism. You won't find that from me. I'm Howie Silberger's Political Hitman right here on Israel News Talk Radio. that we that the cream is put on top of the cake. So I think that the world should butt out of this conflict. I think the world should just leave Russia and the Ukraine alone. I don't think anyone should get involved. This is an internal matter. It's a Russian-Ukrainian matter. Let the Russians and the Ukrainians handle it. I really believe that if we create a world war over a Russian-Ukrainian land squabble, then we have really disrespected the concept of world war. So, what were the world wars? The world wars that happened already. World War One happened because of a NATO type alliance where people were aligned, militarily aligned, and when one country gets attacked, the other countries had to come to their defense due to treaties that they had signed. World War II was essentially almost the same thing, where a land squabble in Europe turned into a world war because people were obligated to get involved. One country had to protect the other country, and at the end of the war, like somewhere near the end of the war, when the Jews were starting to get massacred, nobody came to the aid of the Jews. It had nothing to do with the Jews. It was more about the land squabble and part of the NATO alliance, so that everybody would fight each other, so that they would all support each other. Military alliances. In this case here, there are no military alliances. Ukraine is not part of NATO, and Russia is not part of any military alliance. Therefore, the world has no right to be involved in this. Why are they getting involved? So let's think outside of the box for a second and try to understand why the world would be getting involved in this conflict. For the last, 6 years, all we've heard is that Donald Trump is the plaything of Vladimir Putin. He's the puppet of Vladimir Putin. He was the man put in Putin's man in the White House. This is what we've heard for 6 years. As true or untrue as it is, and it's obviously untrue, that's exactly what exactly what the media's been telling you for 6 years. So now Donald Trump has announced that he intends to run for president of the United States in 2024. He made that announcement a couple of months ago. Vladimir Putin started attacking Ukraine. Now, if I was a cynical person, which I'm not, I would think that the two might be connected. That Joe Biden's encouragement of this war in the Ukraine and the media's enthusiastic covering of this war in the Ukraine might have something to do with a man named Donald Trump who's decided that he wants to run for president again. Now, call me a conspiracy theorist, and that's fine. You could do that. But is it at all possible that the media, which colludes with the Democratic Party, which is basically the spokespeople of the Democratic Party, are covering this war and making Putin into the bad guy, so that later, when they try to link Trump to Putin when he runs for president again, Trump becomes the bad guy? Do you think this is a possibility that this all has to do with the upcoming 2024 election? Now, it sounds like a long shot, but once again, as we spoke in the last segment, sometimes reality is stranger than fiction. Sometimes things that people do for political reasons is really much stranger than things that happen just because they happen. It's a theory that I've been playing around with, a theory that I've been thinking about, which sounds plausible to me. Last week, as this war started ramping up, the media went to Donald Trump and asked him what his opinion was on this war was. And he essentially said, listen, he said, we don't have to get involved in this. This is not America's war. America has no national interest in either the Ukraine or Russia. So we have no reason to be involved in this. But he said, Zelensky's a scumbag. I think those were the exact words he used. So I put my money on Putin. He said something to that effect. And the media covered that as Trump throws his support behind Putin in the war. That's what got me thinking about this whole theory, that maybe this whole thing was set up by the Biden administration, was created, manufactured, and delivered by the Biden administration in order to guarantee the Democratic victory in the 2024 election. Does it sound like a long shot? Maybe. Maybe. Sound like a crazy conspiracy theory? Quite possibly. But it's a possibility. And it's a possibility that we must take seriously, because watch. And I'll bet you dollars to donuts that in the campaign for presidency, when Trump launches his campaign and runs for president again, you're going to see attack ads against Trump, which are going to be touting this war, which will be over long before that election is called. You're going to see attack ads attacking Trump for supporting Putin, the dictator that tried to usurp the democracy of the Ukraine. You're going to see these ads, and they're going to play it up, and that's what leads me to believe. If you believe that Biden was the catalyst behind this war, then the reason that he was the catalyst behind this war was because he wants to kill Trump's chances of beating him in the next election. Now, call me crazy. I've seen crazier things. We talked about Hillary Clinton paying a British spy to write a novel about Donald Trump and then selling it to the media as truth. Everyone called me a conspiracy theorist when I talked about that on this show, and that proved it to be true. Call me a conspiracy theorist, but sometimes thinking outside the box and looking from outside in, you see things that the media doesn't want you to see. You see things that the media thinks that look, the media believes that everybody's dumb and they could cow everybody into believing everything. And most people believe whatever they see. I remember years ago I was talking to people who told me about some crazy medical discovery. Then I found out it was on some TV show, and some quack doctor on a TV show made this discovery. But the person sold it to me as if it was truth. He told me it as if it was gospel, as if it was written truth. But it wasn't. And he believed it only because he saw it on TV. And he said they wouldn't put it on TV if it wasn't true. And that's the attitude of a lot of people. If it's on TV, if it's on the radio, if it's on media, it's irresponsible to put false information on the media. But you think about Dan Rather. Dan Rather, who on 60 Minutes did a 10-minute segment on George W. Bush, which he totally fabricated, which got him fired and disgraced as a journalist after a 50-year career. These things happen. Zealotry happens. It happens in the media, it happens in politics, it happens a lot. So when you think about the way politicians play the media, the way the media plays the public, and the way everyone's being played, you have to wonder, how do we get out from this trap? How do we solve this problem? How do we get rid of this? How do we say this is unacceptable and we're not going to take it? And the only way we could do that is to stop limiting ourselves to one side of the conversation. Most people I talk to only watch one network. They won't read or listen to anything else. And I say listen to everything. Watch everything. Read everything. Understand both sides of the issues. You can't discuss one side of the issue unless you understand the other side. The more read you are, the better you are in arguing, the better you are in understanding what's going on around you. And always understand that the media is not there to be your friend. The media is not there to sell you, to tell you the true story. The media is there to sell you their story, the story that their publisher wants you to sell you, the story that will get them the most amount of ears, the most amount of eyes, the most amount of sales. That's all that matters when it comes to mainstream media. You don't matter. I don't matter. The truth definitely doesn't matter. I'm Howie Silberger. This is Political Hitman. I'll see you next week right here on Israel News Talk Radio.